By the end of this video, you will understand why Don Jr.'s cease and desist letter to Jimmy Kimmel is the single most self-defeating legal document produced by the Trump family in the entire documented history of their relationship with American late-night television, and why the specific documented reason it was sent is more damaging to the person who sent it than anything Kimmel said in the segments the letter was trying to silence. The letter was not sent because Kimmel lied. It was not sent for defamation. It was not sent because Kimmel fabricated a document, invented a quote, misrepresented a vote, or produced a claim that the public record does not support. It was sent, according to the documented, sourced account of what triggered the legal action, because Kimmel kept pressing play. That is the cold open reversal. The cease and desist is not a response to a lie. It is a response to a recording. The specific, documented, publicly available, court-entered, congressional record certified, WikiLeaks published, New York Times reported recording of Donald Trump Jr.'s own messages that Don Jr. wrote, sent, and that the public record has contained since October 2017, messages that no legal instrument can remove from the public record because they are in the public record and have been since 2017. Played on Kimmel's desk in Kimmel's voice to Kimmel's audience on ABC at 11:30 at night. The message that started it, Don Jr.'s first contact with WikiLeaks in September 2016, in which he wrote, in the specific, casual, completely unguarded register of a man who did not believe the message would ever be read by anyone other than its intended recipient, the words, off the record, to WikiLeaks, the organization with the word leaks in the name. The organization whose documented, stated operational purpose is the publication of things that people wrote off the record. Kimmel said, that's not political coordination, that's texting with treason. He said it in the flat, wry, perfectly calibrated register of someone who has found the single most efficient sentence for the documented absurdity and delivered it to an audience that laughed in the specific, involuntary recognition frequency register of people who have been given the word for something they have been watching for 8 years and have not yet had a word for. Don Jr. did what the documented record shows all Trumps do when they cannot argue with the facts. He threatened legal action. His lawyers sent the cease and desist. The letter claimed Kimmel's segments were defamatory and damaging to his reputation. The documented record of his reputation, placed in order with the timestamps attached, is the receipt in this script. The receipt is not a framed document held up to the camera. That element is the fabrication channel's addition to the story, the dramatic single gesture that the real story does not contain and does not need. The receipt is the documented record of the reputation the cease and desist claimed Kimmel was damaging. The reputation, a man who wrote off the record to WikiLeaks in September 2016, a man who was sworn in to testify in the New York fraud trial on what Kimmel described as an upside-down Bible, the specific, wry, forensic image of a man taking an oath on an inverted sacred text as a metaphor for his relationship with the concept of oath-taking, delivered in the flat register of someone for whom the metaphor does the work that a longer sentence would do less efficiently, a man who testified in the $250 million fraud case against the Trump organization, while his father threw a Halloween party and posted on Truth Social, "Leave my children alone." Kimmel's reply to "leave my children alone." It's easy. I've done it their whole lives. 7 words, the most precisely targeted 7 words in the documented record of Kimmel's coverage of the Trump family, delivered in the flat, wry, unhurried register of a man who has found the single sentence that contains the finding most completely and has delivered it in the minimum number of words the finding requires. It's easy. I've done it their whole lives. The sentence does not argue. It does not perform outrage. It does not deploy the vocabulary of psychological analysis or family dysfunction or parental failure, or the documented biography of a man whose childhood relationship with his father has been a subject of public discussion since Mary Trump's book was published, and since the specific, documented, publicly available record of the Trump family's internal dynamics was placed in the public record by the people who were inside it. It delivers the finding in 7 words and leaves the rest in the room, at full volume, without a word of elaboration. The fraud trial is the escalation that produced the most directly documented material in the cease and desist timeline. Don Jr. testified. The testimony was public. The specific, documented, court record-entering testimony of a man who signed documents, attended meetings, and participated in the specific, institutionally structured financial fraud that the New York Attorney General's office had been building a case around for years, placed on the public record in a Manhattan courthouse, with the stenographer's transcript and the judge's annotations and the opposing counsel's cross-examination all available for anyone with a case number and 30 minutes of archive access. Kimmel played the tape. He played the tape in the specific flat press play register of a man whose documented job is to find the most legible public record material and deliver it to his audience in the most efficient available form. Not fabricated, not invented, not dramatized beyond what the record supports, simply played. The ABC suspension is the rung of the escalation ladder that arrived between the WikiLeaks segments and the cease and desist, the specific, documented, institutionally significant moment in September 2025, at which the FCC chairman threatened ABC in the specific regulatory register that had already been deployed against CBS and The Late Show, and ABC pulled Kimmel off the air indefinitely in the specific, corporate legal cost-benefit analysis register of a company that had calculated that the cost of keeping him on was higher than the cost of the story that pulling him off would generate. The story it generated, 400 entertainers co-signed an ACLU letter supporting Kimmel within the week. The ACLU letter read, in part, "Last week, Jimmy Kimmel was taken off the air after the government threatened a private company with retaliation. It named what had occurred in the flat, institutional, civil liberties register of an organization whose documented professional function is to name what has occurred when what has occurred is the specific, documented pattern of a government using regulatory instruments to pressure private companies into silencing the people the government finds inconvenient." Kimmel came back. He came back in the specific, documented, completely unbothered register of a man who had spent his suspension in the specific, flat, productive state of someone who is not performing the unbothered quality, but is genuinely, documentably, professionally unbothered, because the suspension was not a silencing. It was a confirmation. The confirmation that the instrument was finding the target. The confirmation that pressing play on Don Jr.'s off-the-record WikiLeaks message was the specific act of journalism that the regulatory machinery was most urgently trying to prevent. He came back and pressed play again. The cease and desist arrived in late April 2026. Don Jr.'s lawyers. Formal letterhead, defamatory and damaging to his reputation. The reputation, WikiLeaks, upside-down Bible, fraud testimony, Halloween party, leave my children alone, it's easy, I've done it their whole lives. The complete, documented, time-stamped, publicly available record of a man whose reputation is not a Kimmel construction, but a Kimmel compilation. Kimmel read it on air. Not in the dramatic single gesture framed and held to the camera format of the fabrication channel titles, in the specific flat, wry, line-by-line, press-play format of a man for whom the document is material, the letter is a monologue, the legal threat is a script delivered to him in a formal envelope by people who have not yet understood that every cease and desist sent to a late-night host is not a silencing instrument, but the most efficient possible confirmation that the host has been saying something true. He laughed. He laughed in the specific, flat, completely genuine register of a man who has just received a legal document claiming he damaged the reputation of a person whose documented reputation includes writing off the record to WikiLeaks and being described by his own father as someone whose children he could leave alone easily. A man for whom the reputation claim in the cease and desist is the single most efficiently self-refuting sentence in the legal document. The legal theory requires to function a reputation that can be damaged. The damage claim requires a pre-existing good reputation that Kimmel's coverage reduced. The pre-existing reputation is in the public record. It is in the congressional record, the court record, the WikiLeaks archive, the ACLU letter, the Business Insider suspension story, the New York Attorney General's $250 million complaint, and the specific, documented, publicly available transcript of a man swearing to tell the truth on what Kimmel called an upside-down Bible. The confirmation is in the cross-reference. The documented record of Don Jr.'s reputation placed beside the legal claim that Kimmel damaged it, not argument. Placement. The distance between the claim and the record is the finding. The finding is the laugh. The laugh is the monologue. The monologue is the answer to the cease and desist. Don Jr. didn't call his lawyers because Kimmel lied. He called them because Kimmel remembered. And you cannot defame someone with their own messages. You cannot damage a reputation that the public record has already documented in full. You cannot send a cease and desist to a man who gets paid to press play and expect the pressing to stop. The tape is still running. The messages are still in the record. The reputation is still in the record. And the laugh, the specific, flat, wry, completely genuine laugh of a man reading a legal document that claims he damaged something, the document itself, in its demand for protection, has just placed back in the public record for a new audience at a new timestamp, is still in the record too. Press play, subscribe right now, and turn on every notification, because the lawsuit has not been filed. And when the man who laughed at the cease and desist is asked in a deposition to describe the reputation he allegedly damaged, this channel will be here with the full documented archive. Every message, every tape, every upside-down Bible, every "it's easy, I've done it their whole lives," in order, with the timestamps attached, for the jury.